Hello, hello. We are back. Welcome to Darkhorse Accelerator. Friday, what are we? October 22nd already? Awesome. We've been a little bit intermittent with this live stream, but I think things are starting to really kind of come together with this. This has been a pretty awesome experience and experiment that we've been doing for the last few months. And yeah, I'm not sure today. It's just going to be a bit of the random show today because I am hopefully going to be joined by a couple of the EIRs and a couple of the coaches. I've been like crazy busy today, so I'm not sure if everybody got the message. And last week we weren't live, so hopefully we'll see a few of us in here. But either way, wanted to make sure that we did a bit of a catch up with each other. And this is a little bit of a good accountability situation by doing these live streams. It's, I think, a good way to sort of just incentivize all of us to have momentum with some of the projects that we're working on. So yeah, I think in the meantime, I'm going to just sort of give a bit of a background of some of the stuff that's going on at Darkhorse. It's been a bit of a reorganization or pivot, if you will, in some senses. Although, I don't think things have changed too much from the beginning in many other respects. For just sort of like for a roundup, when we started this program, we sort of jumped into this, myself and the other coaches, as well as the new EIRs that have joined us, the entrepreneurs in residence. We kind of jumped into this without being fully prepared. And so that was exciting. And we did that on purpose, actually. Myself and some of the other coaches here, we are operators, we're entrepreneurs ourselves, and we were really busy. And I had wanted to do this for a number of years, and I never just pulled the trigger on running an accelerator for other entrepreneurs because life gets in the way and work got in the way. However, I figured, you know what, there's no time like the present. Or the present, I should say. And I had a few great colleagues that would love to work with on a project like this. And so we decided to just sort of jump in and kind of build it on the way up or on the way down, depending on which way you want to look at it. Building the spaceship on the way up or building the plane on the way out, on the way down the hill. But it's been a fun journey the last couple of months figuring this out. And we've had some really amazing creators come into the project and sort of build this with us. I see that Carla has just joined us, which is cool. I'm going to invite her into the show, and then we can kind of riff for a bit. Hello, Carla.
Hey, long time.
I know it's been way too long. How are you?
Yeah, good on you.
Awesome. Loving the shirt.
Thank you. I thought you would like it.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
just
very
kept it
cool.
on. Yeah. Can I show you the back?
Yes. Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Love
Yeah.
it.
Good stuff.
I
Good
should have bought
stuff.
like 7 of them so I can have one for each day, but anyway.
Yeah, you could make some money with those. We could throw those up on the store and sell them at a profit.
I don't think H&M would be happy with us.
Maybe not, eh?
No, no.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a better business model we could figure out at some point, right?
Yeah, definitely. We should know better,
Yeah,
hopefully.
we'll figure something out. How are
Yeah.
you? How's the week been? I know it's been we've been having a few conversations and well more chats than anything, but I know it's been like a wild ride this week for you on a number of levels. I don't know what you want to get into, but there's been some cool stuff that you shared with me, and then some challenging stuff. I think that we're that you also shared. So yeah, anything you want to share today? I think this is
Yeah.
the journey. Like basically just going through what we're going through. On a weekly basis, and not just us, but the folks that are around us and that we're connected to. And I think what's kind of cool about this live stream is it's sort of like I think especially today, because we don't really have an agenda, and some days we don't, some days we do. But I think it's kind of cool because it is a little bit more authentic in some ways when it's not so prescribed. What
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about. So I've got some just ideas to talk about, but I'm kind of like, just let's see where this goes,
Uh, yeah.
and we'll have a record in the moment of time of what we're working on and what we're thinking about and what our life is all about right now, and see where that goes. And when
Mm,
we're done, we're done. We'll call it a day.
yeah. I agree. I like it. It has been, I mean, a roller coaster with a lot happening, but that's also nothing new. I think this week was just like new rides that have been added to the amusement park of roller coasters that I go on every week. But overall, really good and exciting. Definitely had some challenges, and one thing that I did learn is that it's totally okay to say no to things, or say when like I noticed that I definitely didn't know how to say no to projects or work or clients or colleagues. And then I ended up putting myself under so much pressure because I just, want to give everything to everyone and end up not taking care of myself. So that was a big
Mm,
thing that I learned this week. And also just, owning up to it and being honest with people that you work with and saying, listen, I'm sorry, I took something on that I'm not able to, deliver on as well as I would like to. So I just can't help you out anymore. And that was very well received. So that's a big lesson that I learned this week. I wish I learned it sooner because it's things like I assumed like I would know this, like that's stupid. Like why are you taking stuff on that you can't handle? But
yeah.
yeah, I learned now, and it's something that I'm definitely a lot more conscious of. So yeah, it's been a lot, and today things took a very big turn, very unexpected. I'm not sure how much of it I want to share just yet, purely because I'm not sure if I'm gonna take it on or not.
Mm,
Um, and the
yeah.
only reason for that is, there's so much happening career wise for me at the moment with the agency, with my personal brand and the book and Darkhorse. Like, there's already so much on my plate. And
Hmm.
now, people that do know me, and I don't know if I've mentioned it to anyone else, but I have spent a lot of my career in the fashion and modeling industry previously, and very randomly today it just like came back into my life. So that's now another avenue that I have to decide, like, are you going to go back there or not? But so far I'm thinking I would. So for now I'm not committing to anything. Really excited to be back at Fashion Week next week in South Africa, in Joburg, not Cape Town. I'm going to
Hmm.
start proving to you that Joburg's better. And then we'll take it from there.
That's tough. That's gonna be tough. It's
Mm.
gonna be. I mean, today you could probably do it a little bit easier because the weather today has been a little challenging here.
It's
But
always challenging in Cape Town.
yeah.
But yeah, so lots happening on my side, lots of potential changes and excitement, but overall really good. And I'm excited to see what happens next because I don't know.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like I have a bunch of things I'm going to ask you about, but I'm actually
Mm.
going to invite two other surprise guests, or maybe not so surprising, but we'll see.
I
Into
thought
the
it was
into
just
the
you and me.
Yeah, you know what?
So
No,
I'm
it's
glad
it's
at
gonna- it's,
least
it's going to be
someone
a bit of a
else is.
party.
Yay.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a party. Here we go.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
How's it
Nice to
going?
see you. Good. Hey, Seuss, how's it going? I don't even know if Susahash knows that he's on. He's on.
Rachel, I
He's
think you
lit.
need to check out your Wi-Fi connections in your basement where Susash lives, because maybe that's the issue.
That's awesome. I don't think Susash. Do you know that You're on live stream.
No, I have
Can you hear me?
because here I think there's a lag or something. The audio, but the video is all behind.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well,
I was just
welcome to the show. You're here.
keep
You're on. We can
talking.
see. We
Oh,
can
let's
see
see.
you. Yes, you are.
Yes.
Awesome. How are you doing, Rachel?
Good. Yeah, doing
Okay,
well.
good.
Amazing. Amazing.
I'll try to not do anything that I would not.
Yeah, well, we're gonna like when we're talking to you, we're gonna talk and then we're gonna pause for about 5 seconds so that you have an opportunity to answer. because I think you're about 5 seconds delayed in terms of hearing everything.
Yeah, yes. It seems like I think it's the computer. It's not even the net computer. I feel like Restream requires like 5. There's always this delay that I do.
So for those of you who have never met Susahash before, anybody who ever finds this or is watching, he's our chief technical officer here at Darkhorse. He handles all the technology, makes everything work, except for Wi-Fi. He just checks out when it comes to Wi-Fi. He's just like, no, I'm not getting involved. Okay, this is too funny. He's just like he's like, forget it. I think I just pushed it too far with him. That's so funny. No, I think he probably just lost the connection. I'm just gonna not assume that he was offended. But that was really funny. Oh, he's back. Actually, he's in the back. Should we? What's the vote? Should we invite back in and try one more time? Round 2. This is like typical startup stuff, right? Like, let's see if we can get the technology working for us.
From the person that's head of technology.
Can you hear us? This could be the whole show. This could be the whole the whole time. We could just kind of do multiple takes. Oh, well, you know what? I'm sorry, Susan. I'm gonna have to terminate your connection for now, and we'll get you on. Why don't you get on Facebook if you can hear me, and you can send us some messages from there.
This platform, I don't.
Okay.
I think that has to happen every time. I think that would be hilarious. Like every time we do a live stream, there needs to be sort of like a connection failure, because then it just makes it so real, right? Like we're not over planning this. Cool. Well, anyway, so Rachel, how has your week been? I just heard Carla share a bit of her crazy journey this week. There's been some really cool new things going on with her. I don't know if you heard when you're in the back, but she well, Carla, why don't you just really quickly tell Rachel your like the high points of your week?
Again, the high points, not the low ones.
Just the high points. Yeah, just the high points.
High points. Well, the most, actually, I forgot to mention it earlier, and I think it's probably the most exciting thing is that I somehow also got connected to TikTok South Africa's head office that deal with local content creators and brands and influencers and stuff. So I'm going to meet up with them pretty soon and just chat about potential partnerships and collaborations between the agency and TikTok. So that's pretty exciting and not set in stone yet, but I think that my job title might be getting way too long pretty soon if I do take on this new path in addition, because there's the agency, there's Darkhorse, there's Mindfuck, the book, which is now turning into short online courses. And potentially I'll be adding fashion industry / some part-time modeling back onto it again. See if I still have it. So yeah, that's really exciting and scary at the same time. I feel like just when I feel like, okay, I know where everything's headed, like I feel more in control, then today random, like shit just happened. But I also believe it happens for a reason at the right time. So yeah, excited.
Well, when you're being chased down by folks getting you to come back into modeling, I guess you probably figured out you have it. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. You're not like chasing it. People are chasing you. So yeah, it sounds amazing. It sounds
it
like
feels awkward or weird to talk to people about it, or like say oh, this is what happened, and then I have to go do that, and then like I'm not that type of person, so I try and keep it as down to earth as possible. But you're right.
Yeah. Just own it. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's nice to be to be in demand, in some
Hmm.
and I think probably in most cases, right? There's probably a version of that we may not like, but most of the time it's pretty good.
The
So okay,
coolest part about it is, sorry, they
no, please.
specifically said that they are looking for, in exactly these words, strange looking millennials. And I was like, oh, okay. Here's one.
Sign me up.
Yeah.
I can be even stranger if you want me to. How strange do you want me to get? Like, wait.
Yeah. Wait until you really get to know me.
Yeah, exactly. Like can we use my brain in this in
Ooh.
this modeling shoot, or is it just going to be my looks? Because if
Yeah.
you really want strange, yeah,
The brain would be the worst.
Well, they can just get you talking for a little bit, and they'll be like, okay, she's in,
Yeah.
totally, we're good. How about you, Rachel? What's going on with you? What's your life looking like these days?
I'm good. Not as crazy as Carla's. I don't know how you do it all. Like that's a
I
lot to
also
juggle.
don't.
Like, oh my God. Yeah, my focus is just on Brightly Boxed. So it's going really well. It's definitely crunch time now that the holidays are coming up. So I've been doing a ton of vendor outreach. I've actually gotten a lot of good response. Like before I started outreach, I spent like a lot of time, like honestly, probably too much time researching. I wanted to be very intentional about like the types of people and businesses I was going to partner with. So I spent a lot of time just making a spreadsheet. I found that checking out Etsy was a really good place to start. There's a lot of great vendors on there that are focused on like handmade products, a lot of like small businesses. So I've gotten like really good response. I would say like my response rate is probably like 75, 80%. Like even if the answer was no, they were still getting back to me. So I'm taking that as a really good sign that I'm kind of going down the right path. But yeah, I'm up to about 12 confirmed vendors who are all going to put a couple different products. So I feel like I'll have a pretty good collection of products up in time for, I'm hoping to launch November 1st. I don't know if I want to announce that publicly. But yeah, if all goes well, I think November 1st would be amazing if I could at least kind of launch like a little like holiday collection, just to kind of test out the new business model. So yeah, it's been going really well.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. And what about just life in general? How are you feeling about just the journey?
Yeah, no, life's been good. I actually got my green card interview, which is something I've been waiting for 2.5 years. So that was huge. I honestly had kind of lost hope just because of COVID and everything. Everything was like super delayed. So that's a big life update because that'll be just a weight lifted just to have that. But yeah, otherwise just like working away, honestly.
So, question for you, Rachel. So, you're a Canadian who's about to get your green card. Hopefully, if everything goes well. Do you end up keeping your Canadian stat? Like, are you becoming dual citizen, or how does that work?
So the green card is just like it would be similar to like Canadian permanent residency. So it's not actually citizenship; it's permanent residency. It would be like I guess the first step to get U.S. citizenship, but it just allows me to live and work in the U.S.
Awesome.
Which is great. So yeah, I'm still Canadian. Would never give up my Canadian citizenship.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. That's cool. Well, no, and I mean it's great too because you're living mostly in New York now, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Yeah, like I'm doing a lot of back and forth. Like obviously during COVID, I was in Canada for the whole time. I didn't leave Canada. I didn't go anywhere. We couldn't. But yeah, now the goal is like once I have this green card, like officially 100%, I can live in New York.
Awesome. Cool. So I'm going to get into just well, just first I'll say a quick hi to Angelique and to Susahash on Facebook. Hey guys. Nice to see you on there, commenting. And Susahash is saying it's not the internet, obviously, because I'm on Facebook. So, I actually think, Susahash, that the bandwidth for sending a text on Facebook might be a little less than the live stream. So yeah, that probably makes sense. It's not the internet, but it is definitely the bandwidth issues with these live streams. So thanks for just jumping in there. And he's also saying "Go Canada." So another proud Canadian over here. And Angelique's just laughing at us. So that's good. That's a good sign. So I wanted to talk about, I wanted to talk about lots of things, but I wanted to share some updates around the program and just get your thoughts, both of you. So we have been doing this for a few months now, and it's been like a journey for sure. Like from my perspective, I think we've been, I'm going to give us I'm going to honestly rate us. I'm going to give us and I'd love your feedback, both of you, but I would say in my own personal expectations for the program and for what we're doing, and the impact that we're hoping to have and so on, I would say for the first pilot, we're at about a 6.5 out of 10. That's my personal, there's my phone agrees with me. Yeah, clearly. I don't know what the alarm was for, but so basically, yeah. So that's what I'm going to give myself, or not give myself, but give us. What do you guys think about that as a rating for us? And I'm gonna say why in a minute, but I just want to see if you guys agree that I'm kind of in the ballpark in terms of how we're doing as a program, in terms of, first of all, progress that we're making collectively, sort of the structure, all sorts of things, anything you could think of, but just summarizing it, where do you rate us? And I think the reason I'm asking this question is because I think it's actually important that you do these sort of check-ins around how you're feeling about things, but also how you objectively how you think things are going, right? And this is going to lead to some pivot ideas that I have, but before I even get into that, I wanted to talk, or not ideas I have, but ideas that we've been discussing. But before that, let's get everybody's feedback here. And anything you want to add to your feedback, you could say, actually, Emery, it's 5 because of XYZ. That's fine, But let's start with Rachel. What do you think, Rachel?
I was really hoping you'd pick Carla first. Yeah, I think 6.5 is probably a pretty fair rating. There has been a lot of change throughout the whole journey, because as I say, I was kind of one of the original EIRs, and I know you kind of relaunched it with a new group of EIRs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a lot of uncertainty almost. I can't think of a better word, but just as a person going through the program, I guess it's without consistency and sort of a clear plan, everything just kept fluctuating and changing. So it's just a lot to kind of navigate. But that being said, you really get what you put into it. I feel I got a lot out of it. I've met all of you. I've gotten, access to resources. I've learned a lot. It's really helped me with confidence and presenting and even doing these lives. I remember the first time I went on, I was so nervous. I felt sick to my stomach. Whereas now I feel a lot more confident about it. I feel it's helped me speak to vendors on the phone and just articulate my idea more clearly. So for me, I've definitely learned a lot and I've gotten a lot out of it. But that's just I guess my own personal experience, because I've tried to be consistent with it. But yeah, I don't want to speak for anyone else that's gone through it, but
for sure. No, that's totally fair, and I appreciate the honesty and the feedback. It's great. And what about you, Carla? What do you think?
I'm a little not conflicted, but I think we should give ourselves 2 separate ratings. I agree with the 6.5, but I also, when you started mentioning ratings, the first number that popped up is a 6. But that's for me a realistic rating, looking at us that are, behind the scenes, that, we giving ourselves ratings and almost just evaluating our performance based on the expectations we anticipate or results we anticipated, right? So we had a lot of planning and guidelines and things that we wanted to achieve and accomplish, which we didn't, which I think is good actually, because it keeps the whole essence of the program authentic and true as well, because Darkhorse is a business that we're all launching together, and the first round's never going to be perfect. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I also think that us as like the insiders, we definitely can put a lot more pressure on ourselves and give ourselves a lower rating because we know what we wanted it to be. But I think it would be quite cool to also get feedback from someone that's maybe one of the newer EIRs that only joined later on in the program, or if there's anyone that's just been following it from the outside that didn't know what was the actual main goals, where did we slip up, because they don't know these things. We do, so we're a lot harder on ourselves. So that's why I think we should give ourselves 2 ratings, but overall, definitely agree with both of you guys.
Yeah, that's great. I think 100% where I'm coming from too. And yeah, I mean, I'm definitely very hard. Like in general, I'm pretty hard on myself personally with anything I'm working on and my contributions to stuff. And so I definitely feel like I have not given the energy to this program that I would have loved to, for a number of reasons. I think there's been like some challenges with just like the the structure. I'm going to say like, so it's interesting. So I listen to a lot of podcasts, as both of you know, and I'm forgetting which one, but I think it might be the one that Rachel referred me to, which is My First Millions, I believe is what it's called. Yeah, which is fantastic, by the way. It's like a HubSpot sort of sponsored podcast. And they talk, I think I heard recently there that one of the guests was talking about, incentives and structure. And like, if you want to create a better outcome, you've got to create a better structure, right? Like it's the individuals or the people in something are sort of as good as the system that they're being asked to participate in, right? And so as a structure kind of systems person, at least I think of myself that way, I feel like it's been like a rapid learning curve of trying to figure out what is an appropriate structure for this. And I'm going to tell you why. So there's a bunch of things that I think have made it difficult for me to sort of like really laser focus in on like what exactly we should be doing. We came in with just really high level. I'll just riff off a bunch of things that I think have made this a 6.5 for me, and maybe even a 6 or a 5, but a 6.5. So I'm going to start with the good stuff, and then I'll get that out of the way. So I think the mission behind why we're doing this, and again, the mission being that we wanted to create a program where entrepreneurs could come in and learn from zero to launch, right? Learn how to basically explore entrepreneurship. We wanted to do it in an environment that had accountability and had peers, working with them on those projects. So instead of having sort of like the guru that's already done everything, every coach that we sort of introduced to the program basically had an operating background and was currently active operating a business, right? So I think we sort of so all that stuff is really positive. I think I really, I personally, and again, I'm just going from my perspective, I personally think that all that stuff is really good. I like the fact that we introduced the live streaming, because that created the accountability, and it also, I think, got all of us out of our comfort zone, because now there's this sort of like record here living in the internet that's basically that we can all go back historically and say, hey, like, where did things come? It's funny, I'm asking we have a colleague at Status, Yolandi. She's working on a case study on Darkhorse. I've asked her to, help us with, sort of documenting what's going on here. And so she's been able to go back through and see sort of from day one and like watch the videos. And it's been very helpful for her to like creating a case study about this. You kind of like can see everything, week over week. Right. And I actually told her to watch this one, because I'm going to be, talking honestly about some things that, have been, a challenge. And one of the things, with this program is that, I think our expectations are really high. I think all of us getting into this, our expectations for ourselves is really high. I think everybody that, sort of came into the program, they want to create a really impactful life. They want to be, they really do want to be entrepreneurs. I believe everybody that joined the program really do want to become entrepreneurs at some level. And every coach really does want to um, see like the benefit of them contributing to this program and contributing to the individuals that came into the program as something that is actually really valuable to them and worth their time and their energy and all that good stuff. So I think that everybody's aligned in a lot of those ways, but um, because we rushed to sort of get this going and we sort of just said, okay, you know what, let's just launch it. Let's just get something going. We've been just figuring out like a whole bunch of the challenges with trying to create a program like this. And I mean, there's a bunch of things I can talk about, but I'll talk about really high level, the things that I think this year has taught me about, and these are lessons for any entrepreneur or any startup who's, building something is, again, structure. Let's start with structure. So the structure of this program, we didn't have a financial model for it. We also didn't have a sort of a, I guess like whatever you want to say, an exit or some a path to quote unquote like business success, right? And I think the reason why is, I'm going to speak for myself again, and probably maybe Carla too, just from conversations we've had, is that this is a bit of more of a passion project, and that doesn't really give me an excuse, but it's just sort of explaining, where this sort of came from, is because this is a passion project. There is like a lot of, I think challenges with trying to make something that, that has value, enough that you could charge for it, but then also keeping it so it's super accessible, right? So it's like one of those things where it's like a struggle of saying, well, we want to have this thing that has a ton of value. We want to definitely, make sure that, it could be something that grows and that is impacting. Again, it's like a measurement of impact, like how many more people could we sort of put through a system that is actually getting some results for everybody. There's also a bunch of ideas that a lot of other accelerators, as we sort of shared in the past, have not really explored necessarily the same way we are. Like, so things like interactive, programming, like what we're doing right now, things like bootstrap first or customer driven development first versus venture funded. And so that's another thing we're exploring with the program. Getting into more direct to consumer is a big thing that we're sort of focused on and we're thinking a lot about, for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's potentially opens it up to a slightly broader spectrum than the sort of classic just pure tech startups. That it also is very timely because a lot of people are thanks, Rachel. Yeah, so she's just coming right back. So there's a couple of things like that I think we sort of figured out. But in terms of other challenges, I think like there wasn't really a good discussion in the beginning with the coaches even as to like what everybody's responsibility was going to be, in this program, right? I think everybody came in and sort of did what they thought they could do to help. Over time, I think because there wasn't clear direction and a clear like structure that we had built, it was very uncomfortable for some of us to like actually continue to, feel motivated, right? And that's hard, right? Because it's so intimate, and we're all sort of like really like putting ourselves out there. That like if you can feel that energy, right? You can feel like that energy, like, oh, this person's not really like kind of as involved as they, like I would hope they would be, or whatever, so there's a lot of that I think going on. And then also trying to figure things out, that we were making a lot of changes throughout every, like as Rachel mentioned, right? Like every couple of weeks something new is happening. It's like, oh, we're doing this now, and oh, by the way, and then we were also trying to figure out who's supposed to be in the program. Yet another challenge, right? So one more challenge is like, who actually should be in the program? Should it be somebody that has a business? Should it be somebody that doesn't have a business, but just has an idea? We experimented with two different models. So one model was that you come in with your idea, and like literally in the beginning, half of the people that I think we've had probably about 20 to 25 people that have come through this pilot. But basically, the first thing is like, do you have an idea? Or do you have an existing business that you want to, kind of work on? That was one direction. And then the other direction was And please, both of you, just interrupt me if I'm like, talking you to death, but like jump in and just tell me, Emery, like, what about this or whatever. But I'm almost done, I promise. And then I'll get your feedback on some of this stuff. I have a couple of questions for you, but basically, I just want to sort of give the backstory for everybody who, just so it's clear. And then, so we basically had basically half the people sort of coming in with an existing idea or with an existing project, or with an existing business, and then the other half were coming in purely with this intention of experiencing entrepreneurship from the ground up, right? And so we assign, which is not, I mean, you could argue that is not like pure entrepreneurship if you're getting assigned something, but it was sort of like this idea of, well, what's important, the idea or the the person, right? And I would argue that I think that the person and their interest in actually entrepreneurship is more important. And we sort of gave like place card, like we had like different projects that had different levels of development that we sort of introduced as concepts, but they were open enough that you could actually manipulate them to kind of create the interest, sort of move it into the interest that you have within, that particular category. So if we're talking about, and in fact, it's funny because if we look at Shandrika, who's still in the program, who's still working on her project, Heavenly Street, or you look at Shamsia, who's still in the program, is working on Haven Snack. They have pivoted like the original concept that they came in and were introduced to and selected. They've now turned it into their own, they've really taken ownership of them, and they've, turned them into some really like better than the original idea, much better in my opinion, both projects. We've also had, a few other people that have sort of developed their own projects, basically sort of picked the project and then really didn't feel it, and then actually just developed their own thing. So that was like Hamza, who's currently in the program, and he's working on his own concept now, subscription service, subscription manager service, SaaS tool that helps you manage all your monthly subscriptions and sort of be able to organize them in one place. So I think like the challenge again of having these two different types of people, and Rachel has pivoted, but she came in with her own business, and her business was, one way, and now it's, she's gone through and brought it into, sort of this new direction. And that's amazing too. But I think one of the challenges is that because we had such a broad selection process, there wasn't a lot of clear boundaries as to, how we should be focusing our energy in terms of curriculum, right? And so when I was getting into a lot of conversations and getting sort of mixed direction from, and not mixed direction from people, but mixed direction from like what I thought I should be focusing on, right? So I would listen to, three individuals and be like, you know what, we need to be a little bit more focused on, product development, right? Because there's a lot of people in here working on some really like difficult, challenging, like product ideas, right? And then I would talk to, somebody else, and then the next day I'd be like, wait a minute, we really need to focus on marketing, because these people, need to really be thinking about how they're getting this thing in the market, so it was just one of those things where I think there was a lot of like, again, it's part of, I think the experience, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I do think it's added to a lot of the anxiety that everybody who's been in this program has probably felt at one level or another, which is that there's a bit of like, I think you mentioned it, instability or uncertainty. It's not a lack of commitment. I don't think there's a sense that people are like, well, nobody's committed. It's just more of a lack of clarity as to like, where is this going? Like, is this gonna like turn into something completely different that I don't recognize, or is this going to stay the same? And so the first thing I want to say is, before, I get your feedback, Carla and Rachel, is I so appreciate the fact that, both of you, and not just both of you, but, Susahash and, all the other folks that have been sort of on this journey, and who have either left or have stayed. It's been an amazing experience. So I'm so grateful, because I've learned so much from this, and I've had other projects that have not, met my expectations, but this one's kind of interesting to me, because even though it hasn't met my expectations in one way, it's exceeded my expectations in many other ways, because it's actually convinced me that this is a really important problem to solve, and I'm doubling down on solving it. And there's some ideas that I'll introduce later after we have this, sort of opening up, sort of behind the scenes conversation. I'm going to talk about, I think, things we can do to really level this up. And the goal is next year, I'd like to relaunch this, but not relaunch it, just sort of continuity cohort 2. And I'd love to invite some of the folks that are in the current version to come in as coaches, including we've invited Rachel to become a coach, because she's just, I think she's as much of a coach as any of us here, in so many ways. And yes. So basically, but it's been just an amazing experience from that perspective of just being like, I feel privileged to have had an opportunity to figure this out to this level. Now, we haven't figured out Darkhorse, but we figured out, like, to me, we figured out that this is important, and we figured out that this is something I want to commit to, right? Even though we came in wanting to commit to, but it's just more like, is this something that we're going to be able to build on? And the answer is absolutely, like, yes. Things have been changed. Relationships have changed a little bit. Some of the coaches are now in slightly different positions. They're sort of moving into maybe more advisor roles, as they sort of pursue other endeavors. Some of us are sort of modifying, I think, our involvement. We've changed even in the last little while. I can talk about some of the pivots that have already happened. We've actually been a lot more hands-on with the remaining EIRs. So, like, in terms of more hands-on, we've actually been now sort of working together very collaboratively. And initially, it was sort of like, we come in and here's like a lesson, and come back next week and show us what you did. But now it's more like, hey, well, let's just talk about this. Let's actually get into the mud, and let's, like, really kind of figure this out together. And I love that part. I actually think that was a blessing in disguise. It's hard to do that when you have 20, 25 people. I don't know how we're going to be able to scale that next year, but I have some ideas around that. I'll share those later. I have some ideas on how we can scale it. But one of the things that I'm really appreciative of is the fact that I've had an opportunity to actually experience that and actually do that with you guys. So anyway, just giving you some love. I really appreciate the fact that we've been going through this, and I'm super excited to see how it turns out for each of the remaining EIRs and the projects this year into next year, because I actually think all of them are going to be continuing to develop and build into next year. And I would love, and I'd hope that each of the EIRs that are still here are going to continue to have a relationship with us, and that we continue to have a relationship with them. And also, there's some ERs that left that plan on coming back next year, and I think we'll have a much better structure for them to work and thrive in, which I'm super excited about. Haven't talked about why I think that is, but we can get into that later. But I'd love to get your guys, like, insights or feedback, or just anything you think about, in relation to what I just said, and maybe other things that you noticed that were pitfalls or difficulties. Because really, my goal with this part of the conversation is just to share with people, like, it's okay. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to have, not meet your own expectations. It's okay not to meet other people's expectations, as long as you're putting the effort in, and as long as you're giving yourself that accountability and being, honest with yourself and being honest with each other, because that's how you grow. We don't all come in here with a perfect rating, and we're not going to get a perfect rating in anything we do. This is all messy, especially in the early stage, and it continues to be messy in other ways, as from my experience, as you get into, maturity. But I think that there is definitely a lot of things that we could have done to improve it, but it's funny because I never like to regret, and I never like to kind of wish I could go back and retroactively change something, because there's so many things right now in my personal life and my professional life that it's impossible for those things to have taken place if it wasn't for certain, perceived negative circumstances that happened prior, where I was like, oh, that's not really good. But now that has led to this, I wouldn't have even ever considered this if it wasn't for this over here. So everything, if you kind of think of it like that, it's like you might have this sort of challenge, but then if you actually look at the other side of that challenge and you say, oh, wow, like, actually, I would have never even had this opportunity if that challenge hadn't presented itself. And so I'm not giving excuses for, not meeting your own expectations. But what I am saying is that I think we also have to be okay with the fact that it's a marathon, it's a journey, and that there's going to be pieces of the journey that are going to, like, kind of like throw you off, and take you away from where you want to be. And you can always pivot. You can always, get back to, on compass, and then just get back to where you want to be. And as long as you continue to keep checking in with yourself and the people you're working with. So anyway, it was just, I know, a long tangent, but I think it was important to share some of that stuff. Any speechless? I left you both speechless.
I think both of us are sitting and being like, who's going to go first? Who's going to start talking first?
I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I didn't really even ask you a good question. It was just more like, hey, what do you think
Yeah.
about all that? It's like I feel like one of those. I don't know. It's like how my I'm getting into. I was gonna think certain relatives I have who will, tell me a story, and then they'll be like, "So, tell me, give me your feedback." Like, how do I even begin to talk about that story? But anyway, so what do you think?
I'm going to send you a TikTok video that I saw and I actually want to recreate, because when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's Emery. Where it's just like someone sitting in an online meeting and they say like, oh, that one person that doesn't know when to stop talking. And then this person's like, okay, bye. It's done now. Okay, bye, bye, bye. And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's Emery. It's enough now.
That's totally me. Yeah.
No offense, but it's true.
No, it absolutely is true. Like I am like, yeah. Anyway, I don't know what it is. I just start talking, and then I feel like I need to explain, but my explanation is so long-winded, and then I'm like, but if I shorten it, then I feel like I'm not opening up, because I'm not explaining it properly or whatever. But then I'm like, well, wait a minute, there has to be a more concise way I could have said that, but I don't know. It was like, yeah, it's just the way I communicate. It's unfortunate but true.
I mean, I have one thought of something you said. As I say, like, you said a lot of things, but maybe I'll just start with this like one thing that I kind of like wanted to like, I guess, expand more on was, I think it was really cool how you gave people without any business the opportunity to be involved in the program. I think that's really interesting. Like, I already had a business, but had this program come up like a year before, that would have been a really cool opportunity and probably something I would have jumped on. But it's one of those things, right, where it's difficult because, and I said this a couple months ago on a live stream too, it's like you're just given a folder with a bit of information and then no prior experience running a business. It would be very difficult. So it's kind of like this balance, right? Like, I think it's a super cool opportunity, and I think it's definitely something to keep doing in the future if you think it could work out. But I don't know, like maybe it does come down to the execution and like the programming. Maybe there's a way to kind of, I don't know, like facilitate at least the setup period. I think like once you kind of get going, you're good. And I feel like that's like Shamsi and Chandrika are a good example of that. It's like at the beginning, I was kind of like, well, I don't like really know what to do here. But then they kind of like found an avenue that felt good to them and they started to run with it. I think it's just getting past that, like past the hump, right? And I feel like it's hard for a lot of people, and especially, I know some people had like part-time jobs on the side or they're doing school on the side. Like, it's hard to really dedicate enough energy and time to kind of push through that, because that's a thing, right? It's really hard. Like, that's how I felt. And that's why I joined this program in the first place. Like, I was at that point where I'm like, I'm feeling stuck. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to take this forward. Should I get a job? That's why I was looking for jobs. And that's how I came across the Darkhorse posting in the first place. Right. And like,
that's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So you kind of said that thing where like, oh, kind of bad stuff has to happen sometimes for you to kind of find something good. And that's how I felt. I was very stuck. I was kind of feeling unmotivated, and I was like, oh, maybe I should give up. Like, that's literally where I was at. And then I found this and I ran with it. And now here I am. Like, had I not gone through this program, I don't think I would be where I am. I wouldn't have met like Susahosh or any of you guys as coaches. And like, I wouldn't have gotten like connected to Meta Eye. So I don't know. I think it's like helping people get through that like initial like fear, doubt, and uncertainty. And then once they're past that, the right person will make it work. It might be different than what they imagine, but I think that the right person can push forward.
Awesome. Yeah, that's such good feedback. Appreciate that. And I think you're right. I think that there's a way I think we can structure it though, that it could be even more, consistent, that result that you experienced, because I think, 80% of that was you, right? You coming in, like you said, with sort of like this attitude. Same thing with Shamsia, same thing with Chandrika. Just there's a certain type of person, I think, that, they're just going to get, the results that they're looking for by basically taking what's available and ignoring, any of the, the limitations of whatever, program we're putting together. Right. And I think that that's really cool. I think where, we can improve is to sort of create something that every anybody coming in can have a little bit more of a clear path on how to be able to do that. So just really spending time to sort of, project like these are the ways that you can leverage these are the ways that you can access, this opportunity more successfully, right? Because I think that everybody has different sort of learning curve experiences, and all that stuff. So yeah, so I do think that there's a lot we can do to structure it so that there's actually more predictable, and also even just sort of vetting the type of individual that's going to actually thrive in a program like this, and then having also some consistency around like where they're at in their entrepreneurial journey so that people don't feel like they're sort of all at different spots, right? I think you were early enough where it actually still worked for you that you probably didn't feel like, wow, this is completely not my not my kind of vibe, and vice versa. I think that some of the successful EIRs that came in without experience as an entrepreneur had enough other things that they were successful with that they were able to sort of transition into this idea more successfully with less guidance, right? Without less of the structure stuff we just talked about. So I think that was a good learning curve for us too, to sort of realize that hey, wait, there's certain ingredients that have to come in, and there's also certain ingredients that we have to bring to the table. So yeah, so thanks for the feedback. That's great. And I wanted to say, I love you too, Susahash. So I needed to say that because he just said, some cool stuff on Facebook here. And then also, lovely to see you too, Shamsia. That's awesome to see you on Facebook. And you're welcome. You're very welcome. Okay, so Carla, what are you thinking? Anything to add to my my pity party?
It's not a pity party, not at all. Main things, two things that I thought of earlier as you were talking, that I remember now that I just want to mention is firstly, like the whole thing of not meeting expectations. I think that's something that all of us have definitely felt previously in our careers with other jobs or businesses or whatever, and definitely with this journey as well. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I actually think it's a good thing. Like, I would be more concerned if I work with someone, or I see it in myself, that I feel like I always exceed expectations and there's no room for improvement. Like, that would be a bigger red flag than being able to identify, oh, I can improve there and there and there. So although I think we definitely, didn't meet all the expectations we set for ourselves, or that we, set for EIRs for what they can expect out of the program or from us as coaches, I still think it's a good thing to not, make excuses for it or try and justify it or anything, but taking responsibility for it, owning up and learning and improving from it. And then with that, just mentioning about failing at things. So I think I must have mentioned it a long time ago. So I previously also had an agency before me and Emery met. And that was my first ever business that I started super impulsively, obviously. But I also think that I was very lucky in a way, because I just quit my job. I was like, I'm going to do social media marketing. I have no clue, but it seems easy. I don't need, a lot of money to start this business. And I went and I just changed my job title on LinkedIn, and within a week, I was in a meeting with someone that wanted to use my services initially. I had no portfolio, no website, nothing. I just decided on a name. But he ended up becoming co-founder, invested money into the business. He was a business partner. And it's something that I struggled with a lot, although I'm super happy with, where my career has gone since then. It was quite a big obstacle to overcome, to think like, shit, I started this agency and I left it, and although things are great now, it still somehow feels like a failure. But in a way now, I also realized that it's not, because I've been in conversations with this previous business partner of mine, and it ended on good terms, and it's still super supportive and everything. So I don't think that knowing when to end something, or when it's not the best position or like opportunity anymore to move on and not see that as failure and adjusting it. So now I can still, like I still have a business partner, definitely one that matches my craziness, which works for me. But it's bigger and better, and like it's just different, and I'm still doing the same thing, just on a different scale. So it doesn't mean that the first step was a failure, and I think that's sort of what's happening with Darkhorse as well. Is we had this round with certain expectations. Sure, we didn't meet all of them, but it's a massive learning curve, and doesn't mean it's a failure completely. That's just how we're going to grow and improve from there on. But those are the things I remembered that I wanted to mention.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that's it really reminds me of, similar circumstances for me of leaving previous projects or previous relationships and partnerships. And, at the time, it definitely, very much in many ways was a failure. It was a failure on different levels, right? It was a failure in terms of like, sort of me just giving up, saying this is not, just not feeling like the right direction to go or do. But it was also a success because sometimes you stay in things that you shouldn't, right? And we have all done that, right? Where you stay in relationships or stay in business arrangements or jobs or whatever it is that you shouldn't. And the reason why you shouldn't is because you rob all that space for the opportunity to do what you're really supposed to be doing, right? And so, one of my personal missions this year was to kind of get out of my comfort zone in many different ways and also push my boundaries in many ways that I had never done before, as an entrepreneur, as also as a human being, right? And so I think that there's been tons of success in that. There's like a list of things that I see as success, and then there's been some things that I fell short on, right? Honestly, and that's okay because that's life, right? Like that's that is part of it, right? You're not, if you don't, if the risk of failure isn't pretty high, it probably means you're not pushing yourself as far as you could, right? You're not taking enough chances, right? And so, because I mean, you look at it, and I mean, of course, if you're gonna, like we've all overcommitted, we've all, just in talking to Rachel, talking to Carla, Susahosh, Shamsia, Chandrika. I mean, I think we've all, like all of us, in different times in our life, have overcommitted, pushed ourselves too far, and you had to sort of circle back, right? But yeah, no, I think you're right, Carla. It's a big part of the journey. It's a big part of the journey is just sort of like moving, past the moment of failure, so to speak, to a better place, right? And a place of higher growth, a place of greater alignment, right? A place of more success in however you define success. And that's a good segue because I want to now talk. Okay, so we got all that sort of baggage out of the way, but I want to talk about some sort of vision stuff now a little bit. And again, this is going to be hopefully a little more interactive. I'll try not to do all the speaking here, but I want to talk about some of the things that I want to add to the vision of Darkhorse that I think can, create an even more powerful experience for three different people. So the EIRs, of course, right? The entrepreneurs and residents that are coming through the program. So we're going to think about 2022 first of all, because I mean, if we go too far out, then it gets a little crazy. At least from my perspective, because I can end up getting like way ahead of myself. But basically, 2022, so next quarter essentially. So you basically have EIRs. So I want to talk a little bit about like what we can do so that it's more successful for EIRs, more successful for folks that are watching, right? Because I mean, honestly, I've been a little self-conscious with even like this live streaming thing. I haven't really promoted it because I haven't felt great about the structure yet, right? I'm like, what is it that we're giving? Like, what's the value that we're giving? And I do think there's been a lot of value, but I also think like if you're not careful and you sort of share entrepreneurship in one way, I think you could put people off, honestly. And they'd be like, why would I ever want to do that? That's not, you guys seem crazy, And so I want to also make sure that even though it's honest, I also want to make sure that, we're able to sort of have a system that creates, some ways to be able to sort of see some clear milestones being met, and some sort of events within the program that people can expect to go through with us, right? And so I think that that's something that I can talk about, that I think we can add for the audience, and which would make me personally a lot more comfortable with having an audience sort of really come in and be able to understand, like, the what entrepreneurship is, and also like what we're doing, how we're sort of approaching it. And then the third is, of course, the coaches, right? So I'd love to see the program really motivate coaches at any coach that's sort of in the program to actually really have significant stakes in it. And sounds good, Carla. We'll see in a bit. That's she's going to join a client call, so that just shows you, it's like this is real. Basically, yeah. So that's the other thing, and I'm going to just do this so it's a little bit makes more sense. So that's the other thing, is like making sure that the coaches are also getting a lot out of it, and I think they have been, but I think that again, it's more about making sure everybody's aligned, because there's an alignment there that needs to happen as well. And as a business as well, we need to sort of figure out the business metrics and like how we're going to measure success from that perspective as well. So Rachel, it's me and you. So we're going to talk a little bit about these things. What before I get into my list of things that I think we can actually do, and just sort of put it out there so that we're sort of getting a bit of a conversation going. What things do you think, specifically, like maybe like, even nuts and bolts, or even high level, what things, you've already mentioned a couple of things, like, better structure, but just being like more specific, like what are things that you would love to see in the, in a version 2 of this, if you could wave, a magic wand and sort of make this into like the ultimate accelerator for entrepreneurs and startups, what would be included that's missing?
I think one thing that I would say was missing, and not like missing per se, because we do have the Slack group, so there's ways to kind of connect with the other EIRs in the program, but because it's virtual, it is hard to kind of capture like the same energy as if you're in the same room with all, with each other.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like if there was some way that the EIRs could interact more, I think they would feel less alone in the process.
Yeah.
And honestly, maybe more likely to kind of like push through, because they realize that everyone has self-doubt, right? Like sometimes you have a bad day, a bad week, whatever. It doesn't matter how successful you are, you feel it. But in the moment, it is sometimes hard to remember that. And yeah, it is virtual, so it's difficult. It's kind of like, I know I mentioned like, oh my gosh, like months ago, like, oh, we should do like an accountability call once in a while just to check in with each other. But I know there's like a bit of fatigue with that too, right? It's like now, oh, I have to schedule, a chunk of my day to put towards this. And I don't know. I do feel like there is a way to do it. I'm not sure. I'll have to like think it through, because you kind of put me on the spot. I haven't thought through like the best way to like actually execute that. But I do think that having a bit of connection among EIRs would help, like, at least for me personally, I would have felt even more supported.
I've got a suggestion for you, just along those lines. Let me invite Rachel back in. Or sorry, Rachel, Carla back. You are Rachel. Let me invite Carla back in. Okay, so
sorry.
hello. So I want to respond to Rachel's idea. So I love this. First of all, I think you're absolutely right. You nailed it. I think that's one of the biggest things is, I mean, the reason why you're in this program, there's two things. Obviously, one is the education piece, but then the other part is community. And it is a lonely game, especially for a solopreneur. And even if you have partners, because we have partners, myself and Carla, and it can still be very lonely because, you still feel like, you don't really have a lot of people that are peers that you can talk to about, different things. Right. And so the program actually gives a lot of value that way. Like I love, the interactions between, us and, the other EIRs and us and the coaches. So here's my suggestion. So there's two things here I think we can do. So there's a program called Tiger 21. Have you either of you heard of that program? Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So it's like sort of like if you're very high net worth, very successful individual, investor, entrepreneur, et cetera, you can join this mastermind group. They have something in there that I've heard about, which is called portfolio defense. So every week, or not every week, sorry, every like meeting or whatever. I don't know how often they do it because I'm not in the program, but I think it's every month or something that they get together, and a different individual, basically it's like a mastermind. So you're a small group of like 15, 20 entrepreneurs. So you're all in the same, sort of group or class. And then, you're connected through the larger organization, and there's sort of a structured approach to it. So what's really interesting is, so they have this thing called portfolio defense. And what they do is they basically, they pick one person in the group, and that person transparently opens up everything that they're working on. Not working on, in this case, they're not necessarily working on, but everything they're invested in, everything that they're making, their entire portfolio. So all their assets, all of their things that are generating revenue or whatever. So, I mean, one of the things that it forces them to do is, first of all, to really open up and really get into things that typically, you don't really get access to. And it's very confidential. I mean, they don't really, they're probably not doing it on live stream like we are, but they are basically doing it with each other, right? And there is this really cool thing that happens where everybody can sort of participate and sort of like give them feedback. So sort of this sort of like round table where you have this like group of advisors, and they're truly advising you on specifically what you're doing. And there's just deep focus on each individual one at a time. It's different than if you just sort of have like this loose, sort of community where, the focus is always on yourself, and there's the banter between individuals, but there's really, and occasionally somebody will ask for help, and then people will help them, but it's definitely not like a concerted, focused sort of attention on one individual at a time. So I love that idea, and I was like, that should be how we sort of organize a lot of our sort of challenges, as well as a lot of our interactions next year. And we can start it whenever. We can start it even this year. But the idea would be that we take each individual entrepreneur, and we assemble into smaller groups, and you have your mastermind group, and then we start, we cycle. And so unlike classic accountability, it actually is an event now, and it doesn't feel like, oh, just wasting my time here. I'm gonna like just check in, and it's the same old. It's like, no, I'm coming in. I get to present to the other 5 of you. This is what I'm working on. This is where my challenges are. This is where I'm getting success. And it's a deep dive. So this is going to be like 2 hours, whatever. It's going to be like a deep sort of dive into the business, and everybody's going to be providing you feedback and giving you like honest answers around like questions you might have, and also giving you feedback on things you're doing, looking at traction, looking at, your marketing plan, looking at your product, looking at your ideas. They're also going to bring their own ideas to it. And it's like this really cool way of sort of having, a real connection with the rest of your colleagues in the program and the rest of your peers, right? So you're not just now focused on your own business, you're focused on everybody else's business as well. That's part of your batch. What do you think?
I think that's really cool. I like that a lot. I think it would definitely be a way to kind of build closer relationships with the entrepreneurs, while also learning too, right? Because you're now seeing challenges that EIR is facing, or obstacles. So I think that's a great solution.
Awesome. I want to say hi to Cameron. Hey, Cameron, I'm glad you're watching and you're getting something out of it. Awesome. And yeah, I missed, he's busy. So he's doing something else, I'm sure, right now that's equally stimulating, and also it's very much startup-y, and he's an advisor for a bunch of different accelerators. So hopefully he's having fun tonight too. But yeah, thanks for the message. So that's great. Thanks for the feedback, Rachel. Okay, so that's the first thing. The other thing that we can do to add to that, and again, this ties back to what you're talking about, is one of the things we talked about is that we were going to be peers, sort of, and that was what was going to be unique about the coaches in our program. But true peers are kind of going through the same stuff, right? And even though we are entrepreneurs and we are going through stuff, we really don't spend a lot of time kind of the same way going through the challenges or going through the exercises or going through like the lessons at the same sort of depth that you're doing it, because one reason or another, whether it's because we're quote unquote like not in that stage of the of our business right now, or whatever. But what I was thinking about is that what's interesting is that a lot of the current coaches, and I don't know if this is always going to be the case, but a lot of the current coaches, we all have little side projects, or we all have like multiple projects or companies that we're part of, right? And so whether it's a side project or actually just one of our main gigs, either way, a lot of times, I know for me, for example, I have things that are just starting, are like very early stage and are just, even idea stage, right? And then there's some things that I'm also, very full time, and they've been around for a couple of years now, like the agency work. I think one of the things that we can do is actually have an option, at least for each of the coaches, to actually launch a project and be able to teach through their own project. So come in and actually show exactly what they're doing, specifically as they're using it as an example in a case study to show, okay, this is how I would approach launching this. This is how I'd approach marketing. This is how I'd approach product development. This is how I'd approach sales, sourcing, all of these things that we keep talking about. It's like we come in, we give these like presentations, and it sort of still feels to me a little academic, because it's like, it's all theoretical. It's like, well, this is kind of what you do. Here's a template over here. Here's this. But what if I was able to walk you through it and just go like, here's how I'm using it applied to my specific business challenge or my specific idea. And so that also puts us all on the same level, at one level. And I mean, you definitely can have people that have more experience that are coaches as well as EIRs, but it means that we're all EIRs at some level. We're all actually like accountable to each other, and we're also have an opportunity to participate and learn and participate and teach, right? And so that's option. And what if somebody's an early stage entrepreneur, what's really cool about that idea too, I think, as a business model, for thinking about sustainability for Darkhorse, is that if you successfully get through the program and say you're a first time entrepreneur, well, what you can now do is come back and basically be a mentor for the next generation, right? And you actually have, something that you've been sort of working on. Maybe you pivoted, maybe you start something new, maybe you want to work on a side project. It doesn't really matter, but you're coming in, and the next year you have an opportunity to kind of now, teach what you're learning through the program and join the next cohort and become like a EIR, still working on your business potentially, but also now being able to kind of share your knowledge and give your feedback to the next generation that's coming through the program. So it's a sort of this self-fulfilling, again, not everybody's probably going to stick around and do that, but many of them will, many of us will, hopefully. And we have this sort of like really cool, sort of almost like, ecosystem of entrepreneurs and coaches that are, the lines are blurred, intentionally blurred, right? It's not like this person's the coach and this person's the entrepreneur and, this is how they interact. It's like, no, everybody could be a coach. Everybody could be an entrepreneur. It's just like, obviously we'll put some rules in place so that, there's integrity around, making sure that, people are getting the right type of advice and stuff like that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think there's a way to do this so they could be very successful. That's the other side that I think could add a lot to more interesting relationships, interactions between the group, the association. And then also, I think it also adds to that other dynamic that I was talking about of making the coaches feel more involved and making the audience get more value out of the instructions and stuff like that, or out of because they're going to be able to see there's accountability now. They can see, the coaches who are teaching stuff, how it's applying to their own projects, and some of it's going to be a failure, right? Like, because here's the truth, guys. When you're working on something, there's always a risk. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how much resources you have. It doesn't matter how much you've done this before. Circumstances can always happen. I mean, I was working on a business that was really taking off. And, I actually left the business right before COVID, but if I had stayed in that business, COVID, wiped it out, right? I couldn't have predicted that. No, it didn't wipe it out completely, but it just sort of knocked it out for a couple of months, for sure, like for a year almost, right? Where it was a real estate sort of hospitality business, co-working company. And, no co-working company for, most of the last half of 2020 and the first half of 2021 was doing well. It's just the way it was, right? And so because nobody was working from offices, of course, right? So like you can't predict. So it doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing. There's always an opportunity for failure, right? And there's always an opportunity that your idea, and so we can't be afraid of that. But it's going to still be interesting. I actually find it fascinating when somebody attempts something and it doesn't go right. But maybe other people will be like, hey, well, I only want to watch like success. But that's the only way you can do that is it always has to be retrospective. And to me, that's a little boring. It's like the only time I'm going to share something with you is when it succeeded. Well, then it's like survivor's bias, right? Because the only time you learn from me is when I've actually, but you can actually learn just as much from me about the mistakes I've made, like, and from any of us, right? Like that's just the honest truth. Like you can learn a lot from, oh, I shouldn't do that. That's great. That's a really good learning lesson. So anyway, I'm really excited about that part because I think that's something that we can do that's actually super unique too. I don't think that that's really often what you see in programs like this, where you actually see the teachers actually, having skin in the game.
I'm really excited about that. I think I briefly mentioned it to you when we spoke about it first. But basically how I see this all in my mind is like a game that we're playing, and the coaches are also players in the game, just at different levels.
Yeah.
So
you're trying to level up.
Yeah. So all of us, like some of the coaches, even like you compared to me, would be at a much higher level than I am. So everyone in the game is on different levels, but we're still helping and, like leveling up throughout it all. And the entertainment part of it is like gamers that stream on Twitch, and the people that sit and watch these people play games for hours and hours on end. That's like what I'm imagining in my mind. But instead of smelly gamers, we are weird entrepreneurs. Squid Game. See, Tosh, I think you might be taking it a little bit too far. But
yeah, we're gonna keep it virtual for now, just so we can make sure that nobody kills anybody. Cool. No, that's great. I totally agree. It's it is, well, and it is a game. I mean, it should be fun. Like, first of all, like if you're doing entrepreneurship right, it can be so much fun, and it's like it pushes you in so many ways that it's just unbelievable, and it's tied to your lifestyle as well. Whether you like it or not, like it's going to affect your lifestyle at one level or another, right? So I do think that this is going to be something that's going to be really fun. So I'm glad you're bought in, Carla. I don't know what you're thinking, Susahosh, but hopefully you love it too. We can get maybe we can get Be Epic in here as one of the projects that we're accountable for the next cohort. Who knows, right? But either way, like we definitely I definitely think that would be super fun. And then Rachel, we've invited you to come back as a coach, so this would be an opportunity for you to kind of come back and continue to work with your project, or a new project if you so choose. In fact, actually, you've got a really cool idea that you shared with me that we might incorporate into sort of into the program, sort of having a second tier. Should we talk about that a little bit, Rachel? Maybe can you share, a little bit about that idea, or what do you think? Or is this like is this under wraps for now, or what's the deal?
I can share just a little bit, like super quick. So I'm an organizer for this nonprofit through the Coffin Foundation called 1 Million Cups. And basically the goal of it is to support entrepreneurs. And basically you're giving them a platform to present their business to an audience. So it basically helps them with their presentation skills, and also gets them feedback about their business model, marketing, like pretty much any kind of business challenge you can kind of present to this group of peers. And it's a huge organization in the US. There's like over 160 different chapters. The New York City one is the one that I've been helping with. It's all virtual right now and has been since COVID, but it used to be in person. And I love it. I always love supporting entrepreneurs. I love hearing about new businesses. And it's also a great learning opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I feel like I could tie in really well with Darkhorse. I was thinking if we could put on one of these types of events, even once a month, and just invite entrepreneurs to come in. Maybe it's, I know you kind of wanted like e-commerce businesses for the next cohort. So maybe you kind of frame it around that. Like we reach out to small, fairly new e-commerce business owners. We invite them to present. We can give them feedback. We can invite, other people interested in business. And it would almost be a good way for them to get a taste of what Darkhorse could be, right? Like you're getting that feedback from the coaches. Even before the event, we can kind of coach them through the presentation. Like that's something we do at 1 Million Cups. We tell them about like the presentation format. We'll answer any questions, give them a bit of like coaching around that. So yeah, I figured it was a good way to maybe introduce people to Darkhorse and even potentially introduce future EIRs to the program, to the mentors and coaches. So that was kind of my idea. I'm sure we can flesh it out more, but at a high level, that was it.
Love it. What do you think, Carla?
Sounds really cool. I like it.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Well, one of the things that, this idea of, the advantage of the fact that we're committing to doing this as a public live stream and just the whole program sort of being opened up is that we do have to have ways in order for folks to be able to participate without actually having to commit, 4 or 5 months of their life, because not all of us are ready to kind of go that deep yet, but we want to learn and we want to kind of be part of, the community still, right? And more than just sort of watching or even interacting, like, which is fantastic, by the way, interacting on, Facebook and so on. It would be kind of cool if you could kind of come in and still be part of, something that you get a chance to get feedback from other folks. You get to be part of a community. You get to be part of the sort of larger ecosystem that we're sort of connected to. And we're still adding value at that level as well. So I think that is a super cool idea. And it's sort of, I see that as being like, just sort of it fleshes out the community in such a better way, because it's really hard for honestly, it's not everybody is going to be in a position that they're going to want to, like I said, kind of try to do this more or less full time. I mean, I think really to get the most benefit out of, a 5-month or 4-month intensive is you're going to be at least putting, 20 to 30 hours a week into your project, right? You can probably get away with a little less, but some of us don't have that opportunity right now. We don't have that, maybe you're thinking about getting into something and you want to like start. And so maybe this is a great starting point. And then maybe you're even, in a different spot where you're already well into your project, but you just want to be part of a community of other entrepreneurs. And so you want to come in and sort of help out by giving advice as a coach or as a sort of an audience member when folks are coming in with their ideas. Right. So yeah, I love that. I think that it's going to be something really special if we do something in that direction. And that's yet another way to level up the program, right? So I think we've covered a couple of really cool ideas here that we can start to incorporate into the structure. The last one I'll give for today is, so we basically, in terms of getting an actual proper structure together, if we basically narrow a niche down, like, so the vision behind this is eventually there's multiple different categories. When we originally sort of put the business plan together and I shared it with the other coaches, there was this idea that, each year there's sort of we introduce yet another sort of category, if you will, right? So let's say year 1, it's e-commerce as an example. Then year 2, maybe it's like, platforms and SaaS, and so it doesn't mean that e-commerce goes away. It just means we add so now there's 2 groups that are kind of coming together and are, and what we do is each year we actually have some of the program built out for the previous sort of group, right? So when you come into year 2 and there's, let's say, SaaS and e-commerce, well, e-commerce has already been built out from the previous year. Now it needs to always be updated, of course, and there's different things that we all want to learn, but perfect. Yeah. Basically, you basically now we can focus our energy on bringing in an additional group of entrepreneurs that are coming from a different category. And there's this cool dynamic that can happen hopefully, that's the theory behind, having these like sort of groups coming through. And it also now lets us be more inclusive, right? We can start to add more, types of entrepreneurs that are coming into the program. Then maybe year 3, it's makers. Year 4, it's gamers, and video game, year 5, it's like biotech, who knows, right? But basically we're going to be obviously we're going to have to, it's not like who knows, but we'll have to figure it out, right? Like we'll have to decide like what makes most sense. It's going to be based on, our capabilities, resources, knowledge in those fields, like, getting the right coaches in to kind of come in and teach about certain things that, come from those different areas. And maybe we only limit it to a couple of different categories because that's all we ever feel comfortable, sort of looking after as Darkhorse. But either way, I think this idea of actually, kind of going through this like sort of very structured program around a specific category is also going to add a lot of value to the program, because if you are in that category, this is going to be a great opportunity for you. If you're not in that category, it's clear for us that, it's probably not going to make sense to kind of have that group into this particular cohort unless we actually, have those resources to kind of commit to them, right? So you might have an amazing idea, but honestly, we just don't have the coaches or the curriculum to give you enough benefit for you to actually come into that particular, era of the program, right? And when we have people apply, what's interesting is we can also use the audience, not the audience, the applicants, I should say, to basically help us steer where we want to go next, right? Because let's say we get 25% of applicants are coming from X. Well, now we know, hey, we want to commit a lot more attention to building out that curriculum next, so we're going to actively go out and gather together additional experts in that field, make sure that, the program can actually accommodate that, and we can include them into the next cohort. And then we can also have subgroups within each year that are like, we have our e-commerce batch, we've got our, whatever, our SaaS batch, and they can basically now be their own little masterminds inside the bigger, inside the bigger group. And it allows us to scale, but it also allows it to be really effective and intimate for specific types of groups that are coming through. So that's, I think, the third thing, or fourth. I don't know where we're at now. Maybe we're at 4. I can't remember, but that's basically, I'll have to go back and listen to this. But basically that's another thing that I think we can do to kind of like, again, structure this a little bit more tightly and also make it a lot more both scalable, but also more focused at the same time, right? Each year and each cohort, and we have to check, like to Carla's point, it's a game, so you got to check one box before we get to level up to bring in a new, vertical, right? So that's, to me, I think that to me that's like super exciting, because it's like, okay, well, you know what, we're going to pick e-commerce and direct to consumer. That's going to be check. That's going to be the next one. It's going to be the first sort of niche that we're going to do next time. And then from there, maybe, the goal would be to do it twice a year. So we would do, 2 next year. So maybe if we get through that one, I'd love to do like gaming, or, there's all sorts of stuff I'd love to do. SaaS is also great, doing SaaS and platforms. That are not, not necessarily direct to consumer. We could do, B2B stuff, right? So there's I think sky's the limit, right? There's so many different problems to solve and ways to solve them. But I think that would be something personally that I would sign up for. What do you guys think, though? Because maybe I'm just drinking too much of my own Kool-Aid. But what do you think about that idea?
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
let's just get the first level right before moving on to the others, obviously. But yeah, long term, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, no, that's a good point too. And I think that's probably, that should be like a sort of a group decision to say, hey, do we feel comfortable? Because maybe we always stay in that lane because that's where we're getting the most value. And, the other goal to this, and I think we talked about it in the very beginning, but it's worth repeating, is that Darkhorse is not going to ever be the end all be all, of course, right? There's so many other options for entrepreneurs, which is a fantastic thing. But it's one option that hopefully brings something unique to the table and inspires maybe other organizations to do something and model maybe what we're doing here at some level. Once we get it right, you're not going to model this year necessarily, but maybe you're modeling, some of the upgrades that we make next year, and some of the stuff I think from this year. I think if you can model more Hamzas and so on, if you can model some of the people that are in the program, I think you're doing good. You're doing a good thing. Awesome, guys. Well, that's all I have for today.
Are you sure?
I'm out. I'm tapping out. That's all I have. Actually, I could keep going, but I think we've sort of said enough at this point, or at least I've said enough. Clearly, anything else you guys want to do as a closing argument for keeping Darkhorse going? No. Okay. So the vote is that
For now,
we're going to get
enough.
this. What's the score going to be next year? That's going to be what's the score going to be by the end of this cohort? By the end of this year?
Realistically, considering
Can we
where
get up
are
to
in the year,
3/4?
I was thinking
Can we get
7,
up to
7.5.
I think 7, 7.5
7.5?
is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, like it. I like it. No incremental things for us. We're leveling up by a whole point.
Yes.
I like it. Awesome. Okay. Well, here we're committing to the universe and to our faithful colleagues and family here. 7.5. That's what you're going to get out of us before the end of the year. We're going to be a really strong B plus.
Nothing more than that.
I like it.
No more C's for us. Okay,
Rather
guys.
undercommit and overachieve.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Nice seeing everybody.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. It's been fun. Thanks for joining us on Facebook. Susahash, we're gonna put you in a different bunker for next episode. And we'll see you all later. Bye-bye, guys.